In the US and much of the world, one issue has stolen the headlines for much of 2022. No, it's not the war in Ukraine taking place thousands of miles away. It's something much closer to home, something you feel every time you fill up at the gas pump or swipe your card at the grocery store. It's inflation.
8.6% for the month of May. That matches the all-time high in this cycle.
8.6, a new cycle high, usurping March, which was 8.5. That was the highest since 1981.
Talking about food, gas, shelter. Some of these fuel categories are just almost off the charts here.
In this video, we're going to tell you why those figures, although high already, are probably a lie, and the real figures could be much higher. This is Dirty Money. Inflation can be described as the decline of the purchasing power of a given currency over time. If inflation is running at 8.6%, $100 right now will only buy you as much stuff as $91.40 did last year. Basically, prices are going up, and wages will eventually go up too, but perhaps not right away. The Federal Reserve aims to keep inflation at a constant 2%. That is why if you talk to elderly people, they'll say things like, "I bought my first house in 1961 for $19,000. That would be the equivalent of paying about $187,000 today, when you consider the lower wages back then. So we do have a constant so-called normal inflation, but then we have periods of high inflation, like the Great Inflation of the 1970s, where President Nixon's adventures with Keynesian economics led to inflation rates as high as 14% in 1980. But could we see inflation rates like that again in the US? Well, maybe we already are. You see, the US government has changed the way inflation is worked out since the 1980s. It used to be a cost of goods index, where the Bureau of Labor Statistics monitors the prices of a set basket of goods and shows you how much they have increased in price year over year. But it has gradually been changed into a cost of living index, where they account for substitution, the idea that in hard economic times, people substitute more expensive high-quality goods for cheaper ones to offset the price increases, and thus the cost of living doesn't rise quite as much. For example, let's say that you're a hipster from Williamsburg in New York City, and you normally buy organic eggs from Trader Joe's. Well, since the price is rising, you decide to buy regular eggs from Walmart. That is substitution, and thus the consumer price index no longer shows you the price of maintaining a constant standard of living. The Bureau of Labor Statistics started doing this with the cost of housing and has accounted for substitution in all areas of their methodology. The changes started in 1982 and they continued making adjustments into the early 2000s. Right now, there is quite a big gap between the official figure and the figure we'd have if we used the 1980 method.
Right now, there's roughly a 8-9% percentage point differential.
That was the economist John Williams, who runs the website ShadowStats and reverse engineers the inflation figures using both the 1990 and 1980 methods. And he sees inflation a lot higher than the official figures.
For February 2022 was up 7.9% from the year before. That was a 40-year high. My estimate's up at 16%, which is a 75% year high. Takes you back to right after World War II.
But why would the government do this? Well, here's how it started.
Back in 1982, the Congress at that time was looking to reduce the headline inflation as it was reported, because if they could do so, that would reduce the cost of living adjustment for Social Security payments going forward, and that in turn would mean less stress on the budget deficit.
Yeah. In order to pay your grandma less through Social Security in real terms, they fiddled with the numbers. But then they realized they could save in other areas too. The federal income tax brackets are tied to inflation, meaning that the threshold at which higher tax rates kick in rises each year with the rate of inflation. But if the official rate of inflation is 8 or 9% lower than the real inflation rate, the government is actually raising your taxes without you realizing it, because your higher rate kicks in at a lower income level than it should. Then there is the national debt, which shrinks in real terms with inflation. The Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania worked out that if inflation runs at 5%, the national debt shrinks 20% in real terms by the year 2032. When the target is 2%, that may actually equal closer to 5% when using the 1980 method of working it out. Basically, high inflation benefits the government because they get to pay you less tax you more, and devalue your debt. But they can't let you know they are doing this, or else there would be a riot. So they give you a watered-down inflation figure and at the same time provide you with all sorts of interesting things to distract you and keep your mind elsewhere. Thank you for watching Dirty Money. Please subscribe for more mini documentaries about the sinister side of finance.